Hey, good morning, and welcome to Reality Bites with Dr. Kelly. Just gonna bring my notes up and make an adjustment here. Bear with me. Hope you're all having a good day today. Welcome to Reality Bites. I'm Dr. Kelly. Today might be slightly triggering for some. There's not going to be any graphic content today, but of course, as usual, it is mature subject matter. And today I have my handy little, can you see him? I got my therapy doggy with me. Turbo, say hi. So he might start snoring in the middle of it today. Forgive me. I'm trying to get him used to being in here. But yes, today, if it hits home a little hard, practice self care. This podcast is not meant to replace therapy, but be a supplement to therapy. Reality Bites is my podcast supporting male survivors of sexual abuse. I am giving voice to things that most people don't talk about. In today's world, with the demonic agendas that are being pushed, I'm speaking truth and shedding light on things that not many other people want to even think about or talk about. But we need to, because burying our heads in the sand and pretending this is not happening and practicing willful blindness is not working. So today's subject is sibling sexual abuse. Sibling sexual abuse is where a brother or sister sexually assaults their sibling. Unfortunately, it's not that uncommon, especially in environments where sexual abuse has already occurred. Sibling sexual abuse is common in perhaps one of the following scenarios. So let's say someone in the child's environment sexually abuses that child, then that child goes home and reenacts what they've experienced with their siblings or perhaps with another child. Either child could be older or younger than the first. Child victims often reenact what happened to them. Some do this to try and make sense of it. Others who are older may be doing it to rewrite their own memories, gain a sense of control over a situation, or gain a sense of control over a situation where they had no control. With all the media influence, etc., which I'll talk about in another podcast, but there's lots of influences that would make a man feel like he's not, he wasn't, try to convince a man that he wasn't a victim, that kind of thing. A youth could be trying to override their former memories to try and convince themselves that what happened wasn't as bad as they remember it. It's the element of being in control that's the desired outcome. So they may reenact what happened to them to have a sense of control or to try and, convince themselves that they had a sense of control over what happened to them. Alternatively, these victims may be simply teaching other children what they've learned, kind of like a show and tell. And this next one might be really hard to believe, but please know this is happening, though not as common. A mom or dad enforces a child to engage in sexual relations with their other children. I honestly was shocked to learn that this happens, but it does. So I'm shedding light on it. I had one of my participants, I talk about it in my book, that's a picture of my book right there, Men Too, Unspoken Truths About Male Sexual Abuse. It's available on Amazon. I interviewed a man who was sexually abused by his own father and forced to engage in sexual relations with his own siblings while he watched, and then eventually, after a period of time, he did join in. Again, it's hard to believe, but pedophiles have children. They even marry women with children who are underage, hoping that, or intending to assault those children sexually when they become of age. They also have children of their own with full intent of abusing them. Again, it's hard to believe. I recently watched a movie called Tell Me Who I Am. It's a Netflix documentary about Lyle and Eric Mendez out of the UK. A client told me about this. Please, I welcome news articles, titles, documentaries. Share them with me. Keep me in the know. Help me to learn from these. It's a true story. It's very well done, and I encourage everybody to watch it. They were abused by their mother, and one of the boys develops amnesia, and the other one doesn't disclose to him their history for years to come. And he did this because he was happy for his brother that he forgot his history. But anyways, a very, very well done movie. It's not graphic at all. I do encourage everyone to watch. Um, Back to the scenarios that I was describing where a child A is maybe reenacting what was done to them or they're being forced by their parent. In either scenario, we have multiple child victims, right? In either scenario, that child, both children, may go up feeling guilt, feeling responsibility for abusing their siblings or for what they did with their siblings, or possibly for not knowing better. These children grow up to be adults who live in shame and maybe even estrange themselves from their siblings. Uh, Sometimes even I had a client who felt shame because the person that abused him was younger than him. So his cousin had been abused, well, presumably his cousin had been abused and then reenacted on him, but his cousin was younger, so it was very confusing for him. Either way, we will consider this abuse, although, neither child is considered criminally or even probably mentally responsible. I don't remember how old he was. But children, by their own sort of nature of magical thinking, they take responsibility for things they have no control over. So if this was something that happened to you, please know you are not responsible. Children are not old enough to understand what they are doing or the consequences, the maturity that's involved in these sexual acts. This is why we have laws in place. This is why we define it as abuse. Inevitably, when either child comes of age and learns about the meaning of what took place in their youth, the emotional turmoil is horrendous. They judge themselves as if they knew then what they know now. So again, if this is your story, if you were sexually abused by your siblings or by a bio parent, know that this is not your responsibility. The shame is not yours to carry. Do not judge yourself as if you knew then what you know now. Maybe you are a parent and you're struggling to believe this is even possible. That's understandable because research shows we all think that we think alike, but it's not true. We all think differently. So just ask yourself, for example, do you know a family, a good family, where one child grew up to be, turned out well, and the other one turned out very drastically different? One might be awesome and the other might be kind of awful. Perhaps one golden child in the family and one, excels at everything, and the other one maybe not so golden. One made it through university and became a lawyer, top 10% of his class. Parents are super proud of them. But then there's the other child that they're not so proud of, that they don't talk about often. And the one that maybe dropped out, flunked out, got kicked out of school. Maybe they even turned to substances. Maybe they haven't left their room in months. Maybe all they do is play video games. Well, what if I told you that that golden child is an illusion? They might not be so golden. And what if I told you that the younger child, or the substance using child, or the video game addicted child was actually a victim of sibling sexual abuse? How would you feel about the two of those children now? It happens. This is a scenario based on an actual client case that I dealt with. Parents, please, if your addicted child gets drunk or gets high and makes a disclosure, do not discard it because of their substance use. Sometimes it takes a little liquid courage to get the words out. Sometimes they just come spilling out when the child is high or drunk, right? Children who are sexually abused by their own siblings often choose not to disclose abuse. They do this to protect their own sense of family. They do this because they think that it would be too disruptive to the family. They do this because they don't want to hurt their parents. They stay silent because they think the parents couldn't handle the truth. So they're doing what boys are trained to do. They are staying silent because they are protecting you. And in some ways, they may be protecting themselves as well, right? If they disclose their truth, their whole world could be turned upside down. Everything they know could be turned upside down. They actually really fear that you won't believe them. If you're a parent, they may not. Hello from Pakistan and Kenya. Hello. Awesome. Okay, welcome you guys. Nice to have you here. Anyway, back to podcast. Situations are not always as they appear, Again, this was based on a client of mine. He had grown up He was 8. He was a foster child when he began being sexually abused outside in the igloo. His older sister had taught him how to build an igloo, and she sexually abused him out there in the igloo, and also in the bedroom right next to the kitchen where the parents were cooking dinner, where mom was cooking dinner. So parents, please, anytime a child is alone with another child, just pop in and check out what kind of games they're playing, right? Especially if they're silent or if one of them looks upset or something after they're playing. You really need to keep a watchful eye when children are, behind closed doors, those kind of things. Or if there's an older child, babysitting a younger child, we really have to just pop in and just check on what they're doing. Check in with them. Okay. So, again, sibling sexual abuse happens. It's not something that people talk about. It can happen right underneath your nose. I had another client I worked with in BC. Their entire family was watching movies, had movie night, had a friend over, and the friend would always have a blanket to stay warm, and because the blanket was big, he'd share it with whoever was next to him. But underneath that blanket, he was fondling those children, and it took years to come out. And in the end, that family asked every one of I think there was 4 girls and a boy in the family. They asked every one of the girls if they'd been sexually abused by this boy, and every one of them had, but they didn't ask their son. So years later, this son was still struggling with the fact that nobody even cared enough to ask him. And when years later, I convinced him that he needed to tell his parents the truth. And when he did, unfortunately, they just told him to get over it. But he had been carrying this burden for years. He needed them just to say, I'm sorry, we missed it. That's it. He just needed them to validate his reality. So, yeah, anyways, just be aware that obviously males are victims too. Sibling sexual abuse, like the aftermath can often lead to like hatred for a sibling. One of my friends said his son had gone off to a Bible camp, and he'd gone to be with this camp counselor who he really liked, and when he got home he just hated him. These extreme changes are often, extreme changes in how you feel about somebody are often because of sexual abuse. But typically boys don't talk about it because, hear this, research shows boys and men do not talk about things that they don't hear other boys and men talking about, which is why I'm blowing the lid off of this. We need to start talking about this. We need to make it safe for the boys that are abused to get the help they need. So, yes, sibling sexual abuse or male sexual abuse that happens within a bio family can often lead to, hatred for that sibling, substance abuse, estrangement from the family, suicide, right? Again, my client, the one that was sexually abused by his sister, anytime he had to go home and see his family, he used substances because it was so hard to be there. He didn't want to tell his parents the truth because he didn't want to break their hearts. In his mind, he gave his sister grace, even though she was 16 and she knew exactly what she was doing. In my mind, he just thought, well, maybe she's changed, right? This woman went on to become a lawyer, and he joined the military and started using substances more heavily when he had to go home. Again, he looked like, the family black sheep or whatever you want to call him, because he was using substances, and everybody thought of her as the one person that turned out. Situations are not always as they appear. I learned this from working with clients and from doing my research. And again, I was shocked to learn that this goes on, but it does, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. Parental abuse is also far more common than most people think. And this, honestly, this shocked me that this goes on, but it does. Again, men aren't talking about it because they don't hear other people talking about it. They think of themselves as dirty or disgusting because they were forced to participate in this, and they just try to forget about it. So, again, they want to forget about it. They think it's better that I just put this all behind me, that kind of thing. But that's not possible. It comes up in one way or another, right? Okay. So in adulthood, male sexual abuse can, in adulthood, it can lead to this sort of insatiable sexual appetite, partially because that child might have learned sexual acts as a means of self-soothing. In youth, even, youth will become very promiscuous, either to, again, rewrite those old memories, or because they've learned to like the feeling of orgasm, or they want to rewrite those memories, and make it into a situation where they actually had a sense of control, which is, of course, is not true, or to convince themselves that they were not as traumatized as they were. So, okay, yes, sorry, parental abuse is far more common than most people think. During my own doctoral research, where I examined why boys and men were not reporting sexual abuse, 6 out of the 13 men that I interviewed were sexually abused by their biological parent or their adopted parent. And that shocked me. 3 by mothers and 3 by fathers. Please, guys, if this happened to you, it's not your fault. You are not alone. You're not dirty. You're not broken. The shame is not yours to carry, even if your body responded. God designed your body to respond to touch, and it does. You are not responsible because you didn't stop it sooner, and don't judge yourself as if you knew then what you know now. Do not judge yourself. This is not your identity. If this hits home, I'm very sorry. I see you. You're not alone. This is not your identity. You may need to hear that last word again. Again, this is not your identity. Okay, I'm just going back to see if I missed anything. So, you know what? If this is you, again, I am sorry. If you're a parent and you're watching and you're trying to make sense out of why one child hates the other, ask those tough questions. Ask if something happened. And you might need to be more specific than say, did something happen, You might need to say, like, everything seemed to be okay before we went away for the weekend, and then, when we came back, you guys hated each other, or you hated your brother. Kids hate being blamed for things they didn't do. So when we say each other, if you have the victim in that scenario, you might say, you just ask them separately what happened, right? The older child's probably not going to disclose, but the younger one might. Or again, I say older. If a younger child was sexually abused by someone else, they may actually introduce that into the scenario themselves. So children will reenact what was done to them. We need to be aware of this. We need to just, like I say, support them, bring it to the light, talk about it. Guys, if this was you, I am so sorry this happened to you. I see you. You're not alone. I would encourage you, though, maybe hearing me talk about this could be very validating, could be very helpful, but it's not necessarily healing. I always tell my clients, I can help, but I'm not the healer. He is. Invite the Lord into any of those painful memories. This is literally what I do. I have my PhD in counseling psychology. I have all the breathing techniques and CBT techniques and somatic techniques. I'm aware of all these things, and they help, but they don't heal. I promise you. Invite the Lord in to those, it might even be the reason you come to the Lord. Ask him to come in. Anytime I am hurting, I say, Lord, I'm hurting, whether I'm angry or sad, or, I invite him in when I'm happy too. But when I'm angry and sad especially, I invite him in. I ask him to help me with those emotions. I give them to the Lord. And we need to do this. Like I say, hearing this from me, God is the one that, got me into doing this work. He's the one that gave me the word of knowledge about how big this really is and encouraged me to do the research and to write about it. So just know that he sees you. He wants to help you. Invite the Lord into those exact moments of pain when you're hurting. Invite him in. That's what I do. I literally say, Lord, you see me, you know I'm hurting. Please come in and heal me. Please help me with this emotion. Help me to forgive. Help me to stop hurting. Help me to heal from this. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. I hope that was helpful. God bless you. Next week, I'm going to talk more about reasons boys and men do not disclose sexual abuse. So stay tuned and have a good week. Take care. See you then.